becomes a man celebrating a goal. Let me ask you, is your team meeting their goals? Is your team exceeding their goals? Well, as said before, my name is Amber Vanderburg, and in June of 2016, I completed my master's degree in organizational dynamics from the University of Oklahoma here in Tulsa. And then I finished my term as student government president, and then I put in my 2 weeks at St. Francis Human Resources as I went to become the only American, only female, only Christian, and only blonde academy football coach, or soccer coach, for the Adidas Game Day Academies and Paris Saint-Germain football academies in Bangalore, India. Over the course of the year, I coached about a dozen teams, mostly boys, with a few girls, ages 6 to about 16. In that month, I traded in the office for a muddy field, and I traded in my heels for a pair of dirty cleats. And as I got off the plane in India, I discovered that Kevin Durant had left Oklahoma for Steph Curry on the same day that I had left Oklahoma for Indian curry. And as I joined the academy, I quickly found a common command-obey dynamic amongst our academies. Oftentimes, our players would go to session and they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for instruction. And they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for direction. They would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for feedback. And while this may be an efficient way to teach a specific skill, how do you think this transformed into a game scenario? Not too well. In my second week with the academy, I traveled with one of our elite teams up to Sweden for an international tournament. And I noticed that some of our players, within a game, would kick the ball, and before the play was even over, turn to the sideline to the coach for further instruction and direction. Our players had mastered certain skills, but they didn't quite know how to apply those to the overall game scenario. While it may be easy to hear this story and think, that's an academy and that's foreign, international, in sports with kids, what does this have to do with me? But in how many organizations do we go to work, we receive a task, and we wait for direction? And we go to work, and we receive a task, and we wait for instruction. And oftentimes, it's in these organizations that we hear words like leadership, and teamwork, and high performance. But if we don't understand how our skills transfer into the overall game scenario, then these initiatives will not only be ineffective, but they can actually be detrimental to the overall communication within our team. And so today I'm going to tell a story of how we created a high-performing and championship-winning team. So the first step in transforming a command-obey dynamic, it's pretty simple. You simply stop commanding. By this I mean you stop commanding a task and you start casting a vision. You stop commanding a task and you start challenging a goal. By this, we didn't manage how things were done, but rather we clearly communicated two things. We clearly communicated our what and our why. What are we doing and why is it important? In application, it looked a little something like this. Rather than stand in a line, kick a ball, we would challenge our kids with tasks. So from this point, kick this ball to knock down those 3 cones, before Shiv kicks his ball to knock down his 3 cones. That's your what. That's your clearly defined challenge. But why is this important? Because in order to kick down those 3 cones, you must kick with power and precision. And in a game scenario, whenever we kick, whenever we pass, whenever we shoot, we must also kick with power and precision. So now we know our what and we know our why. How will you do this? From challenges like these, I saw some of the most heated debates I'd ever seen among 7-year-olds, trying to decide if the best way to kick the ball with power and precision was with the in foot or with your laces? Do I have any footballers in the room that may know the answer to this? Inside? Actually, both are effective ways to kick with power and precision. Both infoot and laces are effective ways to kick. And so I had the honor of giving the unsatisfactory answer. Yeah, you're both right. So why don't we try both ways and find our best practice? And then we'd ask follow-up questions. Why did this work? Why did it not work? What can we do differently? What can we do better? And through challenges like these, our players were able to discover their how while achieving the what and understanding the why. Now, whenever training in football and even in HR, we found that there were aspects of our training that were pretty concrete, didn't allow a lot of room for flexibility. But in the application of our skills, we found that there were 5 opportunities for ownership that we could provide for our players. Oftentimes, these opportunities for ownership will make up the personality of a player. Oftentimes, these opportunities for ownership will make up the uniquely better aspect of a team. Oftentimes, these opportunities for ownership will make up the competitive advantage within an organization. So these 5 areas of ownership were this: in our methods, in our processes, in our projects, within our roles, and within our teams, we can provide areas of ownership for our players. Let me go back and explain a little bit. We've already spoken about methods. Are you using your infoot? Are you using your laces? Are you using your left? Or are you using your right? What method are you using to kick the ball? Processes. If you have to knock down 3 cones, are you knocking down the first one first or the third? Knock down 2 at a time, go for a full strike. What processes are you using? In projects, this could be as simple as choosing a warm-up game. Roles are so much more than just the position that you're playing, not defender, goalkeeper, striker, but it could be the thing that you bring to the team. So are you the voice? Are you the devil's advocate? Are you the cheerleader? What is your role within the team? And then choosing your teams. Do you have ownership within your teams? Sometimes we would ask our kids something simple as giving your team a name, especially within our training. And as we did this, our players were able to become better decision makers. They became problem solvers. They had to be a little bit more innovative and more creative. With this organizational change, do you think that this was open with welcome arms or a little bit of pushback? Pushback, right? Anytime that there's any sort of organizational change, there's bound to be a little bit of pushback. In this scenario, our kids found that it was much easier to be told what to do, especially if the focus is on pleasing the coach. In a command-obey dynamic, the focus was on kicking the ball and pleasing the coach, getting that direct instruction. But now the focus has been shifted from me to the overall goal. And so as we encouraged our kids to have these opportunities for ownership, they began to own their processes. They began to own their methods. They began to see how their role played within the overall team. They began to see how their projects played within the overall training. They began to see their team's part within the overall academy. And from this, we found that our players began to have an overall clarity of why they were at our sessions, why they were training for what they were training for. We found that our players were more engaged. We found that we had higher retention amongst our academy. We had better performance amongst our players. Most of all, our players had a heightened sense of purpose. They knew why they were there. They knew what they were doing. And they were given the opportunity to figure out how they were going to do that. In HR, we also have to be a bit innovative. We have to be pretty creative. We have to be problem solvers. And we have to be quick decision makers. So we're going to practice that now. I need everyone to stand up. We're going to get into teams of 5. We're going to play a game I like to call 5 seconds. Quick. All right. All right. So was everyone able to name 3 types of chairs?
He was.
What? Yeah? All right. What were your 3 types of chairs?
Adirondack, lounge chair, and folding chair.
Ah. What about you? What were yours?
Chase lounge recliner and ottoman is what I said, but they're
I'll think about
chairs,
Okay. Do I have any bandies in the room? Did anyone name first chair, second chair, third chair? Couldn't name you. A metal chair, wooden chair. You could name the material of the chair. Name a position, chairman, vice chair. I've had more than 5 seconds to think about it. You could name kitchen chair, office chair. You could name functions of a chair. So there's a lot of different types of chairs that we can use. It's all going in the same direction, right? We've clearly communicated our what, and we know why, because we have to be quick problem solvers. There's a lot of different methods that we can use to name our roles of chairs. How about HR roles? We wear a lot of hats in HR. What were some HR roles that we had? Anyone name 3 in 5 seconds? Superstar. What?
Director, assistant, generalist.
Okay. Anyone else?
Manager. Plus the 2.
Yeah, plus the 2. Okay.
Recruiter.
Comp and benefits.
Yeah.
Comp and benefits. Right, so we have a lot of rules that we use.
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
Absolutely. So as you can see, there's a lot of rules that we have within HR. You can shape your own position to within your HR, right? Let's see, what were some other ones that we had? HR processes, one more. HR processes. What were your 3?
The recruiting, the onboarding, and I can't remember what I said. Payroll.
Recruiting, onboarding. I have a cousin, whenever we play this game, he goes, I know 3, I don't know. Got it. so name 3. All right, so you can see within HR, we also have to be problem solvers. We have an opportunity to be creative, to be innovative. And we also have an opportunity to have our own voice. And so, so let's ask ourselves, are we clearly communicating our what and our why within our teams? Do our teams know clearly what we are doing and why it is important? And then are we allowing opportunities for ownership amongst our teams within our methods, within our processes, within our projects and our roles and our teams, for our players or for our team to discover the how? Does our team have a sense of purpose? Now, I've told a cute story so far about how we've inspired these young kids to have their own voice and to make their own decisions, to realize that we have now inspired 15 very young and very loud young children to have their own very loud voice and to make their own decisions. What have we done? But that's okay, because this isn't the end of our story. You see, now we have inspired our kids to make decisions on their own. But now we must teach them how to make decisions as a team. You see, now our players have a voice, and now they must acquire the wisdom to listen. And I wish I had some groundbreaking and unique way that we taught collaboration to our kids, but in reality, we use the methods of a man much, much smarter than me, named Pat Lencioni, who outlines the 5 functions of a high-performing team. You may know this a little bit better as the inverted 5 dysfunctions of a team. And what Pat Lencioni outlines is this: the foundation of any high-performing team is trust. For us, that began with building relationships amongst our players. Keep in mind, in some of my international schools, we had up to 16 different nationalities represented within one team. Socioeconomic diversity in India is a much bigger factor of status than what it is in America. We had different cultures, different languages, different religions amongst our small teams. And so we spent time building relationships and building trust amongst our teammates. And then we discussed the idea of healthy conflict, healthy being the key word here. The main difference between healthy and unhealthy conflict is the absence or presence of a unified goal. And we had been clearly communicating our what and our why from the very beginning. And so anytime that there is an opportunity for ownership, there is an opportunity to engage in healthy conflict. We were going in the same direction, but how are we going to get there? What process? What method? What roles are we going to use? So there was an opportunity for conflict here, and so we would discuss with our players the ideas of communication, of respect, of ethics, all going to a same decision. And then once you make a decision in your team, are you committing to that decision? And are you holding one another accountable? At the end of the session one day, we were getting ready for a scrimmage or a practice game, and one of our defenders named Ganesh decided that he didn't want to be defender that day. He was going to be striker. And so he expressed this to his team, and his team said, okay, you're our best defender. If you can be defender for half the game, we'll allow you to be striker for the second half. So 13, 14-year-old kids thinking, all right, this is good compromise. This was not good enough for Ganesh. Ganesh said, nope, I will not be defender today, I will be striker. And so he marched out onto the field and he crossed his arms and he stood there. And as the game began, the other team came and they whisked past Ganesh and they scored a goal. Ganesh's team was very upset with him and they said, Ganesh, we need you to be defender. And Ganesh said, no, I will not be defender today. A few minutes later, the other team came by again, they whisked past Ganesh and they scored a second goal. By this point, Ganesh's team was so irate with them, they said, Ganesh, we want you off this team, we want you off the field. We would rather play a man down than to have someone who's not committed to this team. For a team of 13-year-olds, this was getting pretty intense. And so Ganesh marched over to me and he said, Miss Amber Ma'am! People often didn't know if I was a miss or a ma'am, and so I was oftentimes called both in the same breath. Miss Amber Ma'am. That was my name for a year. And so she came and he said, Miss Amber Ma'am, why won't they let me play? And this was an opportunity to speak with Ganesh about the value of commitment and accountability, and the idea of putting the team before yourself. And then I asked Ganesh, what will you do to regain the trust of your team? Ganesh thought about it for a minute, and then he whisked back onto the field, and he played the best defensive work I'd ever seen him play. But let's not forget the top of the pyramid, which is attention to results. At the end of the scrimmage, Ganesh's team still lost by 2. Pat Lencioni paraphrases. He says that the greatest dysfunction of a team is to care about something other than the unified goals of a group. Team status and individual status are often the primary culprits. Team status is in your department. Individual status in Ganesh's case was playing a position other than defender. And while I could discuss collaboration and teamwork a little bit more through my words, I feel like it's best exemplified through a game. And so I need 7 volunteers, not wearing heels, to come on down. We're going to play a game I like to call tic-tac-toe. Oh, don't be shy. If you don't volunteer, you'll be voluntold. So whenever my kids play this, they actually have to run the length of the field to put down a code. So let's go through our Pat Lencioni. So did you have to trust your team members in order to play tic-tac-toe?
Or like the team members down.
Yeah. Right, if I'm the first person laying down a cone, I have to trust that the 2 people behind me are going to finish the line that I started, right? Well, was there healthy conflict? Was there an opportunity for healthy conflict?
Yes.
Absolutely. What were some areas of conflict that we had?
When the blue team could have won the first round.
Let's look at our areas of ownership. So were there different methods you could use in tic-tac-toe?
Yes.
What were they?
Could have not drilled, you could have just kicked
Just
it down
kicked
here.
it one time.
That's a good method. What are some other methods? We're gonna use.
Which direction?
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna do horizontal? Are you gonna do vertical? Are you gonna do diagonal? What method are you using? You had different methods to kick the ball. You had different methods to put it on my makeshift board. What about processes? Were there different processes? What were the processes?
How to get the ball down there.
Gotta get the ball down. Are you gonna go from left to right? Are you gonna go from right to left? Are you gonna go up and down?
We're gonna go in the middle.
Are you gonna go in the middle and then figure it out from there? That's
I let them
definitely
figure
a
it out.
process. Some people do. Absolutely. So there's different processes we can use in tic-tac-toe. Projects, not so much. What about roles? Are there different roles within the team?
Apparently he was the cheater.
Had a
I
cheater.
also gave you the game, so
Yes.
that's the ultimate cheat.
So Mark was our cheater.
So we threw the game then?
Yes.
It's through the
First.
yes, absolutely. That was your project. We had the anchor of the team, right? The last person that went. You had the first person. You had to decide who was going at what time. So you weren't all going at once. You had to decide what roles you had there. Ideally, you have someone who's the speaker, someone who's the eyes and the vision, right, of the team. What about teams? Did you guys have the opportunity to choose your own teams? Yeah. Right. All right. So let's go back and look here at. So there was definitely an opportunity for conflict here, and we had to communicate with our teams. The more successful teams were the ones that spoke with one another. Did you have to commit to the decisions that were made? Absolutely. If I start a line, and if I have 2 dots or 2 markers that are going vertically, and then I decide to go over and put it horizontally, I've let my team down, right? Because I haven't committed to. Because then I haven't committed to the line that the team has decided upon. So we have to hold one another accountable, right? So someone could have said, "Hey, Mark, remember we're doing this," right? So there's an opportunity for communication there, right? So you could still see from a distance what was happening whenever Mark was putting his marker down. All right. And attention to results. There were 2 main results we had to pay attention to. What was one of them?
Well, there was a tie game.
There was a tie game, so there were 2 results that we had to look at. One would be your line, right? And the other would be the other team's line. That's right. So you had to pay attention to your goals. Your end goal was to make a 3-dotted line. But you can't just be so focused in on what your team is doing that you're not noticing what the other team is doing, right? So sometimes you have to play offense, sometimes you have to play defense. We have to make adjustments. I believe the blue team was on their way to winning the first game, and the white team made an adjustment, right? They decided to block instead of put their marker. So they're paying attention to both their team and what's going on in the overall game. Right? So we're not just paying attention to our task, we're getting a larger vision of what's going on in the game. So now we have players that are able to make decisions on their own, and we have players that are able to make decisions as a team. So they're able to have their own voice and listen. And so our last task within our academy was to cultivate captains within our academy to champion our culture long after we were gone. As you can see on the board here, whether it's Captain America, Captain Underpants, or Captain Crunch, captainship can mean a lot of things depending on the organization. And so our task within our academy was to clearly define what captainship meant to us, and then to clearly define that for our players, clearly communicate that for our players. Keep in mind, we didn't have captains while we were working on creativity and collaboration. It doesn't mean that the position didn't exist. It doesn't mean that the players were oblivious to the role. As a matter of fact, in my first few weeks with the academy, I had players come up to me and say, "Miss Amber, I want to be captain today." I'd say, "Okay, you can be captain. You can tell me what the roles and responsibilities of a captain are. And in the beginning, with our command-obey dynamic, keep in mind that the very, very common belief that in this dynamic, if you obey, and you obey, and you obey, and you obey, and you obey long enough, then one day you will have the opportunity to be the commander. And that's how we continue that command-obey dynamic within the organization. And so I'd have kids come up to me and they'd say, yes, Miss Amber, captain is the person who tells others what to do. No, that was not our definition. And so you can imagine, for months I had players coming up and giving their definition of telling others what to do as their responsibility for a captain. And so with this sort of build-up, you can imagine that the day that we did discuss captainship, it was quite possibly one of the most anticlimactic days ever. All right, boys and girls, today we are going to define captainship. The captain in our academy is someone who puts the team before themselves and does their very best. Outrage. What? Miss Amberman, you mean that I still have to listen to my team and I can't just tell them what to do? Miss Amberman, I've already been doing that. Miss Amberman, you mean I still have to work with my team and they can't just do the work for me? Miss Amberman, I've already been doing that. You guys are impressed a white girl can do an Indian accent. I've lived here for a long time. You see, captainship is more of a responsibility now. It's not a position. And our players knew that if they wanted to become a captain, then they must dictate and demonstrate what captainship was as defined by our academy. And then after our captains were chosen, they went through a short captainship training program in which we discussed the responsibilities of a captain. Now, keep in mind, in this time, we didn't spend a lot of time speaking about and cultivating the character of our captains, or the character of a leader. Because we'd already been building that from the very beginning. We already had the leaders. And now we were training them for the position, not the other way around. And some of our first captains within our teams are now leaders within our organization, within our academy. And I have no doubt that they'll continue to be leaders on and off the field in the future. Now, I want to shift gears here for just a minute, because everything I've spoken of thus far has been the implementations that we made on the field. Because essentially, that's where it counts. But keep in mind, I spent about half my time off the field working within organizational development within our academy. And the impact that I could make on just my team and within my field was nothing compared to the possible impact that we could have across the academy. We were in the third largest city in India. We were in operation 7 days a week, and we were in 9 different locations just within our football programs, not including the other sports. And so whenever I first got back from Sweden, from our international tournament, I sat down with our executive team, and we defined what we were doing and why we were doing it. We restructured our academy goals. We clearly defined our academy vision. And then from that, I worked with a team of international coaches to define our performance evaluations. We've restructured our performance evaluations to better meet and to better match our overall academy goals. And from there, we also restructured our curriculum design so that we could help our kids perform well on the performance evaluation, to do well on, to meet our academy vision and goals. I worked with our program managers to implement an online tracking system for our players and communication system so that we could track the progress of our players and clearly communicate that to our parents and our players and our coaches. We implemented a knowledge management system so that we could build upon what we had already done. From a staffing aspect, we worked on our coaches' development. We implemented a more strategic recruiting process so that we could actively find the coaches that we needed for our organization. And then implemented an onboarding process so that we could clearly communicate the cultural expectations here in India, and the academy standards. We worked on continuing education opportunities, and then we implemented a 360 evaluation, where our coaches were evaluated by our program managers, our players, our parents, and a panel of coaches. By this, and then lastly, we implemented a scholarship program so that we could expand our reach throughout the community, and we could find players that maybe had the quality of talent but didn't have the financial means. And through all of these initiatives that we had off the field, we were learning the same things that we were teaching our kids off the field. Together, we were learning how to be more creative and how to collaborate as a team. Lastly, I can tell you the story about a young man named Achintya. Achintya was one of my youngest players, and his first day with the academy, he came running out onto the field, and he started yelling, "Pass! Pass! Pass!" And I noticed that Achintya, he was yelling pass even when the other team had the ball. And Achintya was yelling pass even whenever he was miles away from the action. And Achintya was yelling pass even whenever he had the ball. And so he was running with the ball, going pass, pass, pass. And so I asked Achintya, I said, "Achintya, why are you yelling pass?" He said, "Miss Amber, I do not know what it means. I only know it is a football word." And so I explained to Achintya that if you're in the wrong position, if the other team has the ball, or even if you have the ball and don't realize it, then yelling pass can not only be ineffective, but it can actually be detrimental to the overall communication within the team. Eventually, the team's going to tune you out. Kind of a boy who cried wolf scenario. And oftentimes, I hear organizations kind of sounding like my friend Achintya, yelling, leadership, innovation, teamwork, because they know that they're good words that can lead to big goals within business. But if we're in the wrong position, don't even have the ball, then yelling these words can not only be ineffective, but they can actually be detrimental to the overall communication within the team. But if we first lay a foundation within our organization that clearly communicates our what and our why, and then we allow room for opportunity for ownership within our projects and our processes and our methods and our roles in our teams, if we allow our teams to be creative, be innovative, be decision makers, if we first lay a foundation within our organization where we have teams that are collaborative, that are trusting, that engage in healthy conflict, that are committed to those decisions and hold one another accountable, that look at the scoreboard and pay attention to the results. We have organizations where we have captains to champion our culture and to continue our organizational culture long after we're gone. Then we may be in a position to yell pass, to receive the ball, to move it forward, to shoot, and to score big goals. My name is Amber Vanderburg. Thank you so much for having me today. What questions do you have for me?